So now, have you been keeping up with the series so far, the whole Saturn Satan series? Have you been watching that Mental Nature series? Because it really goes with this series. A lot of things in that series you see fits in, and it's a reason for that we're going to get into. Now, I started a new series, the Mystery School Teachings, and that is another major piece that fits in with this whole thing. So, we talked about in that series about how the ancients basically looked up in the sky and saw the sun, the moon, the planets that's visible with the naked eye. And they figured, what they were standing on Earth was probably the same, a planet sitting in space. And they realized, one, that, we don't come from this planet, that, women have children, and that's how we are here on this planet. And since we don't grow from the Earth, we obviously didn't come from the Earth. Something had to put us here. So, they watched the stars and they cataloged the heavens and everything like that to, basically see, what's going on. And we're talking about, thousands of years ago. And it's a lot into this whole thing because we're talking about a race that is after, a previous race. So when I talk about these ancients looking up in the heavens and everything like that, as I said, I'm not talking about the originals or the first group of people that was on the planet. I'm talking about the people who came out after the catastrophe that basically destroyed most of the planet. The civilization that existed before that catastrophe is the main thing. That's the whole big deal that we're trying to get into. Who was these people? What was this civilization about? Where did these people come from? So you got to realize that everything that they tell us, everything that we know now, as far as, things that pertains to the ancients, we're talking about a group of people who are possibly descendant from an earlier race of people that was on the planet that was either wiped out or, possibly left the Earth. So we got to really remember that. A lot of times people think when we talk about the ancients, we're talking about the original people that was here first. You got to remember, human beings haven't been on this planet for that long. This planet, they tell us, it's 4.5 billion years old. So we haven't been here, a billion years. So we know that life began. Human life came on this planet a long time ago. So we really got to examine the creation story of us. So as I said, we really have to pay attention to our creation story, and we got to look at what we have been told. So we are told that the planet, as I said, is around, 4.5 billion years old. Now, we know that the Earth began as basically a blob of molten lava, a blob of molten magma. And it eventually formed into a sphere. And we know that happens as a result of gravity. And, we get the shape of the Earth, the round shape, the supposed round shape for you flat earthers. And we look up and we see it's a round moon and a round sun. I mean, common sense would tell you that the Earth is round, but we could possibly be wrong. There's a lot into that, as you all know. But, argument's sake, we know it started out as a blob of molten magma, lava. And millions of years of cooling. We all seen these videos where a volcano erupts and the magma comes out, and then the lava, once it hits water, it cools. And as it cools, it turns into land. And that's how we got our land mass. The Earth's crust is basically cooled down lava. So the whole question would be basically, where did this molten ball of magma, of lava, come from? And we have all heard about the Big Bang Theory. What a lot of people don't realize is there are two Big Bang theories. And the first one, of course, would be the Big Bang that brought about the creation of the entire universe. The second Big Bang would be what brought about the creation of our solar system. A lot of people don't realize that our solar system is the result of a Big Bang. So a lot of times when people hear about the Big Bang, they don't associate Earth coming about from a Big Bang. They always go back to the original Big Bang that supposedly created the universe, and they think that Earth appeared along with our universe when our universe came into existence as a result of the Big Bang, that the Earth, followed as well. When we know the universe the universe is supposed to be about 12 to 16 billion years old. Earth 4.5 billion. So we know that before the Earth even formed, it was already galaxies and planets that existed, billions of years before Earth even formed. So, people who think critically, deeply would say, well, what started, the Big Bang that created the universe? How did that Big Bang happen? And then if you think a little bit deeper than that, you would say, well, who created the Big Bang? But, more than that, who created the space that the Big Bang took place in? I mean, it had to happen somewhere. Who created that somewhere, and that's when you really want to get deep into it. It's space. It had to be a space that the Big Bang took place in. Who created that space? What did that space consist of? And we can just keep going back deeper and deeper. Now, our feeble brains cannot really comprehend the consciousness of the entire universe. We can't comprehend what things brought it about, or, what rules or circumstances could have possibly brought it into existence. But what you do find out when you start really getting into dark matter and, space and everything like that, that there is no such thing as nothing. I know that sounds weird. There's no such thing as nothing. Nothing is still something. So if nothing is still something, then that means existence has always existed. And I want you to wrap your head around that. Existence has always existed. There is no such thing as time unless you create time. And the only people who worry about time is people who are bound and controlled by it. And that be us. So since we are bound and controlled by time, if you look back, you will see that it was a supernova. And a supernova is when a sun explodes. It was a supernova that brought into existence our solar system. So when a supernova happened, the particles from that exploding sun or star is what created our solar system and brought everything into existence. Now, when we read Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void." Now, if you think about that supernova, it was a sun. We know the Bible, when it's talking about God, it's really talking about the sun. So you have God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The heavens is simply space or the sky, as we know. So the earth was without form and void. So remember, the earth began as basically a blob of liquid magma, of hot magma. It had no form and it was void of life. So the earth was without form and void. So it's giving you the basic concept of the aftermath of the supernova bringing into existence the solar system. Now, when that supernova happened, you basically had the debris fly out into space and crash into clouds and gases. This basically created the perfect formula for, creating a solar system. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, what do you mean clouds and outer space? Well, if you look at the Latin word for cloud, the Latin word for cloud is nebulous, which is nebula. And when you look up anything dealing with space, you'll always see a nebula. A lot of you have heard a nebula. Now, a nebula is basically ionized gases of helium and hydrogen. Remember, I talked about in part 4 how all the periodic tables of elements is basically different amounts of hydrogen atoms that they call, many different things. But really, it's still just hydrogen. Now, if a supernova explodes with enough energy and force, the tiniest particles, the dust particles even, become so hot that they basically cluster together and create these lumps. Now, these lumps basically form together under its own gravity, and it becomes so hot and dense that it creates its own sustainable energy. Now, after the energy is created and it's sustained, you start basically seeing nuclear fires. So these nuclear fires start to ignite and they fan out into a disc shape. And this is basically how a sun is formed. So we have a sun going supernova, exploding. All the debris goes out, and if it's hot enough, it'll basically recreate itself. So you have a supernova going from a sun exploding and turning back into a sun. Now, again, if the debris fans out far enough and it's in the right location, it might crash into other debris. It might crash into a nebula, and you'll get planets. Planets will be created from it. But, if not, then at least the sun will recreate itself. So it's almost like us, the sun, being reborn or recreating itself. So this is one of the amazing things that that scientists looked at and was, shocked by. And it make you wonder, did the ancients already know about this stuff? Because remember, everything was about the sun. So now we basically have the sun, creating our solar system, and then, a new sun basically sustaining, our planet and sustaining us, keeping us alive as well. So, it's a lot more that we have to answer for when you go from the earth being a big molten ball into, what it is today. How did that occur? Obviously, it wasn't no water there. What cooled it down? So scientists will tell you that, eventually, billions of years ago, you had a comet, and they believe this comet was basically made of solid ice, and it crashed into the planet. So researchers will tell you, scientists will tell you, that about 50% of the Earth's oceans is made up of water that is not of this planet. It's not from here. It's not from condensation. It's from outer space. And the water is basically older, than our sun. So they're saying that this water, this comet that crashed into Earth, formed before our sun formed, before our solar system formed. And that's crazy. So it crashed into the Earth and began to cool, some of that magma. So we know when it cools, you start to see land generate. And as you have water in this hot, these hot places, because there's still magma everywhere, we know what's going to happen. You're going to have condensation, and the whole water cycle process will happen. You'll have clouds. It'll begin to rain. And these will be some crazy rainstorms that's basically taking place all around the planet. So you have millions of years of this stuff happening, comets of ice hitting the planet, and this rain, generating, and, over millions of years begin to create oceans and cool the planet. And we see how magma, how the lava is so liquid, and water is powerful. We know water will make its way through anything. So it begins to basically carve out huge masses of land. And this is why we have more water on the planet than land, because so much water, so much rain happened over millions and millions of years. So now the question would be, eventually, how did life, the first life, come on this planet? And a lot of people don't think about this. What was the first life? We know it wasn't us. So we really got to get into deeply, what was the first life on this planet? Now, we can already, just by what we can prove 100%, we know that God did not put life on this planet, or maybe God did, as we're going to get into. But the whole thing is, when you really look at it, religion tells us that all living things was created by God, right? Now, we all know the whole metaphor of God, and it's really talking about the sun. And that's exactly, what it's talking about here. So the first life on this planet is called cyanobacteria. And cyanobacteria is basically formed from carbon. You have carbon, ammonia, methane, and water vapor. So the right conditions was created on this planet to bring about cyanobacteria, which is a living single cell organism. So if you can just think about all these hot springs that's popping up near volcanoes or underwater volcanoes, eventually it will create the atmosphere, the right elements to generate this life. So you got to remember, these are all natural things. Carbon is natural. It's everywhere. Methane it's naturally produced on the planet, ammonia as well, and water vapor. All this stuff is natural elements that's here on Earth before any life was here. So those things combine with the energy from the sun. So this is what you got to realize. It can't happen without the sun. The energy that it needs to become life is absorbed from the light of the sun. So anybody who's done this experiment in college, I've done this experiment in college, where you put the chemicals together and you create bacteria. I actually created a ton of bacteria in college. So I have proof. I can prove that this is exactly how the stuff is formed. And when you realize that this is natural stuff that basically can be created from, nothing, from nobody's hand, then you understand the first life on this planet was basically created from nothing. There's no being that came down and physically put these elements together to put the first life on Earth, which is cyanobacteria. That's a proven fact. So if they want to say God created everything living on this planet, he didn't create cyanobacteria unless they're talking about the sun. And it might be hard to fathom, life being created without the workings of some kind of person or being. And we actually see this all the time. If you ever left bread out in a certain location, you will create mold, and mold is a living organism. It's alive. So, it's the fluctuation of hot and cold that creates mold. So if you put your bread on top of the refrigerator for too long, you ever notice that it gets wet? And it's all these combinations of things that's going to create life. And you just created life with mold. You got to understand, it's still living. It's life. So when you look at the cyanobacteria, we're talking about this stuff happening, all over the world in different places. So billions, trillions of cyanobacteria, single cell and some multi-cell bacteria just popping up all over the earth. This is the first life on the planet. Understand that. So now, cyanobacteria basically absorbs carbon dioxide from the water, and it converts it into carbohydrates, which is its food. It's food supply. So, what do we all do after we eat? Eventually you're going to poop, except for cyanobacteria poops oxygen. So what happens is this oxygen, over time releases into the air. And, we're talking about trillions upon trillions of cyanobacteria pooping oxygen into the air. It's going to go up, and eventually it begins to react to the sun's ultraviolet rays, and it created our ozone layer. So this is how our ozone layer was formed. And we know the ozone layer protects the earth from the sun's ultraviolet rays, the harmful rays, I should say. And this is how we got our ozone layer. So when you go back and look and pay attention to this stuff, and I'm telling you because this is the official explanation that they give us for how our planet and everything formed. So no matter where you go, they are in agreement on this. Dates are off and stuff like that, but for the most part, they're talking about everything I'm telling you right here on how our Earth came into existence as far as sustaining life. So of course, after a while, we get our ozone layer, and the Earth begins to be able to sustain oxygen. And of course, after a while, they say millions of years, life began to pop up. So you had single cell organisms. This cyanobacteria will eventually turn into, fungus and, other bacteria and algae and stuff like that. And from algae and everything, we start getting plants, and from flowers and all that, we start getting trees. And according to them, we started to build an atmosphere that was, able to support and sustain complex multi-cell organisms, and they began to pop up. So animals or insects, we start getting them from insects, animals, and so on and so forth. This is their official excuse of how animals got here. Now, I have a different reason how, and I don't go with their whole research because to me, it's hard to really fit that in there. Because, you had basically, according to science, cyanobacteria was on this planet alone for 3.5 billion years. Now, if after 3.5 billion years of just cyanobacteria, then you get life. You start getting life popping up, not life. You start getting animals, popping up and everything like that. That doesn't fit to me. It's something had to been introduced to the planet for this massive change to start to occur. And that's what we're going to kind of get into. So science tells us that we had an oxygen-rich atmosphere for about 2.45 billion years. And it took another billion years for these single-cell bacteria, multi-cell bacteria as well, to evolve into more complex organisms. So you had this bacteria going from bacteria, into fish eventually, and tadpoles and frogs and lizards to megalodon and T-Rex and Stegosaurus. So, you would think for it to go from, small organisms to more complex organisms to these giants, you would expect to see more giants. Now, they tell us that the atmosphere was so humid and it created the conditions that sustained and created these giant reptiles. But you would still expect to see other giants, on the planet as well. We don't find that. We find these giant dinosaurs, and the whole thing is fishy with that anyway, because we know that they lied to us about dinosaurs from the jump, since we can prove now that dinosaurs and humans did coexist. So the whole timeline is kind of, out of whack, and we really don't know what's going on with that when it's talking about dinosaurs. We know they possibly did exist as long ago as they say, but maybe they all wasn't wiped out the way that they tell us with a meteor and all that, because we know that humans and these dinosaurs coexisted, or humans are much older than they are telling us. So we're not really going to get into that whole thing. The problem is, what I'm getting into here is the evolutionary scale that they give us for us, for humans, for life. So if you had cyanobacteria for 3.5 billion years on its own, on this planet, then all of a sudden evolving into these super complex organisms and these mega giant reptiles, what's up with that? And the thing that really exposes this thing is Pangea. And if you heard of Pangea is basically the landmass that came about, through the formation of the planet or whatever. So basically, at one point, you had this one large landmass called Pangea. So this basically all of the continents connected together was Pangea. Now, Pangea had life. It sustained life. But the problem with Pangea was it had multiple volcanoes. So you had so many volcanoes together erupting simultaneously, and it released a lot of these deadly gases into the atmosphere. It completely changed the Earth's atmosphere, and it wiped out 95% of all life on the planet. Gone. And we know eventually they would separate and we would get our continents and everything like that. But you had 95% of life on Earth wiped out. And then it only took 30 million years for life to start to come back, for the Earth to recover. So how we go from 3.5 billion years of bacteria to basically back to nothing, to no bacteria except for certain locations, but then life recreating itself in 30 million years. The numbers, it don't add up. It shouldn't took so fast. It shouldn't happen so fast for life to recover after that cataclysmic event. So the numbers don't add up, and there's a lot of scientists in agreement on that of what happened for life to recover so fast. So this is why many of us are so hooked on the fact that something was introduced to this planet to create these more complex organisms. Now, Pangea existed 300 million years ago. So, it's separated into the continents we know today. A few times these land masses broke up and separated. The problem is, the dating. And you got to understand, they give us these long, crazy dates, a billion, years of evolution, 100, 600 million years and stuff like that. So we don't really question evolution. And so we can say, well, it takes this amount of time for things to evolve. And this is why we're not seeing evolution. But that don't make any sense when you tell us, 3.5 billion years for bacteria to go from bacteria and to eventually dinosaurs. That's a long time. And then we get life, basically recreating itself in 30 million years. It doesn't fit, especially when you remember that we're talking about under different, atmospheres, different circumstances. So we can say that, okay, well, maybe the, atmosphere sped life up. But if that was the case, then you would expect to see, more animals, the evolution of animals in different places. And I'm going to get into that, what I mean by that. But the thing is this, the problem that you would have with this whole thing, this is the problem I have with it because listen, this is something that I spent a lot of years of my life on really digging into all of this, because to me, this is the key. If you want to start with what we're getting into now, to me, you have to go here. If you really want to look into all the mystery and everything like that, this should have been the first thing you was looking at. You should have been looking at evolution. You should have been looking at what they tell us. And the main thing I found out over my years of researching this, they tell us anything. They don't give us no truth at all. I mean, you really have to question when they tell you the time. I mean, we don't understand. It's just so much stuff they lie about. So you have to question everything and really look into everything that they talk about, because they lie to us. And the whole thing is, they think you're stupid. It's like, shut up, watch TV. Shut up, go to work. Don't pay attention to this stuff. Here go football, be quiet. And they distract us with so much stuff that we don't really pay attention to what they're actually telling us. We just say in our brain, it makes sense. Or this guy's smarter than me, so he know I don't know shit. So, I mean, you really got to dig into stuff on your own. Because my problem with evolution, with the whole thing, no matter how much sense that it made and added up to in a lot of places, is the fact that science tells us that we evolve from cyanobacteria. So we're talking about cyanobacteria eventually becoming these primates that we eventually evolve from. So that would mean what, people? There is no God. There is no creator. There's just this. There is no purpose to all of this. It's just something that was created out of a supernova, an explosion that happened, and through various climate changes and circumstances, we just so happen to pop into existence as a result of evolution. Can't accept that. That's something I couldn't accept. And when I got to this point, I was stuck. And I remember this. This is one of the hardest things that I was stuck on, because it fit. And when you're reading all the books, and all the books are saying the same thing, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Then, why y'all tell us about this Bible shit? 1 minute, y'all telling us we just evolved from primates. And then y'all give me this book that's talking about this holy God that created everything. What the fuck is going on? So, to people like me and you, if you really go crazy over information like that and you really got to do research, yeah, that shit had me snapping. So I had to really look. And I dedicated a lot of time to this, to really looking into this, because I wanted to be sure. Because to me, it makes a lot of sense at first, because it explains a lot. It explained the whole thing. Well, this is why we don't see God. This is why no God has came down and did anything, because, we just evolved from nothing. We are so insignificant that whatever the super God that created us don't really give a shit, because, you don't care about the bacteria that's growing on the ocean floor. It can do whatever the hell it wants. I don't even really know it exists or what it look like. So what? I'm so much on a higher scale of existence. Whatever that stuff is doing, I don't care. And little do we know, bacteria on the ocean floor could be going through a whole bunch of political shit that we have no clue about. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but who knows? In the scheme of things, we're talking about ultra small and huge. So it was something that blew me away, and I couldn't accept it because of the power of the spirit, the soul, consciousness. This is something that is so super advanced. And it just took me, getting some more education to figure out what's going on. And we're going to get into that because I want you guys to know. So evolution is what they tell us, and they stuff the Bible down our throat so we know it's all bullshit. So we got to look at this whole evolutionary scale and see where the problem lies. And of course, it's a problem. It's a major problem when we get into these primates, because when we get into the primates, we look at the evolutionary chart and we can see, you have primates coming, evolving, and basically you have gorillas and chimps still being here on this planet. But then when we get over to Homo Australopithecus, how you pronounce it, I think, this is the big issue right here, because they have a link connecting these two, and that link should not be there. Now, we're going to get back into this chart. Now, it's because I remember when I got to this point of evolution, I was just thinking about, damn, how smart animals are. And it's like, well, then animals became smart fast. When you think about cyanobacteria, 3.5 billion years of existence. And then all of a sudden they become these super intelligent, organisms. So you have to understand what it takes to become an evolved, complex organism. Now, in order for this bacteria to really evolve, it has to get with the other cyanobacteria and agree to live together, to agree to share food. But the most important part is it had to agree to this complex developmental program, which basically is going to redirect cells to different parts of the body to do specific jobs. Now, when you think about how complex even the animal body is, in our body, we got lungs to breathe and a heart and everything like that, and all kinds of organs, our pancreas, our liver and everything. It's different cells that make up these different organs and everything. So we're going to get into that. But this is the type of sophistication that these organisms will have to have in order for it to go from these single cell, eat and poop organisms to something more complex. So we're talking about a long process of evolution that will have to take place, and it will have to take consciousness. They have to take these single cells being conscious of their situation, and they will have to agree to evolve. This is something that's going to take everybody agreeing on, because what's going to have to happen also is they will have to basically kill any bacteria that could not evolve, because you don't want them reproducing organisms that's going to be the same, that's not going to evolve into the new species, because you want evolution to happen, because this is something you would have to really agree to happen. So the thing is, when we look at Pangea, all these animals was wiped out, and 30 million years later, you had new animals come into existence. The problem is we're talking about 3.5 billion years of this cyanobacteria in existence. Now, 3.5 billion years, nothing but bacteria. We should not find any life on the planet during that time. And we did. So you had scientists discover these bugs, and they date them to 3.7 billion years ago. So this is before cyanobacteria. Now, even if you want to say maybe the numbers might be off, you got to look at that number. 3.7 billion years was before cyanobacteria. And remember, it still took another billion years or so for life, for basically, something to crawl out of the waters and, begin to walk around. So that's another billion years tacked onto that. You had PBS and CNN doing a story on this, on how they found the fossilized remains of these bugs that existed 3.7 billion years ago. This is a problem. And also, we know our atmosphere cannot really sustain life 2.5 billion years ago. So we shouldn't find really no kind of organism that can crawl around or walk around and live on the surface more than 2.5 billion years ago. And again, if no humans or no kind of intelligent life was walking around on the surface of the planet 2.5 billion years ago, then, who created these? And these spears, they find in South Africa. They date them to about 2.8 billion years. They also found similar spheres in Utah dating 2.5 million years. And we know about the spheres in Costa Rica and also in Bosnia. And we find all over the planet these spheres that don't nobody really know what they are. People thought for one reason they was formed from something naturally, but the lines is what give it away. These, lines around these spheres. Now, it's not 100%, it's supposed to be 100% proven that the age of these spheres, but of course, not everybody agree. But the fact that we find these spheres in so many different places, it's hard for people to just discount them. And, that's a huge number to be, way off of 3.7 billion years. So, I doubt they off a billion years or 500 million years or what have you. Even if they're off a billion years, it's still, it's weird because, something had to create these spheres, and we know it had to be some kind of intelligent life to do that, and no humans was supposed to be here that long ago. So this is something that you have to factor into the whole process when we're looking at everything, and you have to say, well, what the fuck is this? How the hell did these spheres get here? How did these, eat and poop organisms, single cell organisms, they just eat and poop and reproduce. That's all they do. How did they go from these single cell organisms to these complex organisms forming together and creating a plan to evolve? And this is what we're seeing that they had to do, what must have happened in order for them to evolve. They really had to come together and agree to share food. As I said, agree to live together, agree to go through this whole developmental program and have conscious control of their cells, to redirect their cells to do different things throughout the body in order to evolve into these walking around organisms that we see, today. So think about that. Think about the complicity, the complex nature of, such a job. And, we know, as I said, our body has different organs and, our liver, our heart, what have you. And there are cells that make up these, different parts of the body. So for these organisms to go through such a complex evolution is something that if you wanted to do today, again, this is why they give us these numbers, billions of years, and they decided to do this. But if you wanted to do that today, you would have to engineer it in a lab. It's just that simple. So as I said, something had to introduce these organisms to our planet, and the evolution had to took place probably somewhere else, possibly on this planet, but the ingredients had to be put there, or something had to be put in place or introduced, as I said, in order for this evolution to occur. It is highly unlikely that these stupid eat and poop bacteria was able to organize after 3.5 billion years this complex idea to evolve, and to evolve for what? You got it made. You just eat and poop and reproduce. So, it's a lot that go into this, and a lot of things you got to really think about and look at, when it comes to this stuff. As I said, I really researched this stuff for years, and it's stuff that boggled my mind. And, when you start to really think about the complex, nature of our, organs and everything, that's something that is hard to fathom. Now, scientists, of course, highly debate the date of those spheres, because it basically turns, evolution upside down. It turns everything upside down. The date of those insects that they found of 3.7 billion years. It just really messes up everything that they tried to stuff into our brain as far as evolution and everything like that. So you have some scientists who came up with the theory that, meteors hit the earth carrying bacteria that mixed with the bacteria already here and created the animals, created the insects and everything like that. But then you have to ask yourself, well, how did that bacteria survive upon impact? And even if it did, if that is the case, then obviously that meteor had to come from somewhere that had bacteria that possibly supports life, sustains life. So no matter how you slice it, that bacteria is still alien, and it still had to come from somewhere that obviously also supports life. So of course, this is something that is just touchy all the way around with them, because they want to keep far from out of your mind the fact that life could possibly exist somewhere else. That's something they obviously don't want us to know the truth about. And yeah, they dance around this whole thing. I mean, I've read so many different explanations and excuses on this whole thing because it's obviously true. The spheres, something created them. They want to completely discount them by not talking about them, but they can't deny the science and behind them and the fact that they are here. And if you still want to date them to 1 billion years ago and not even go to 3.7 billion years, that's still, we ain't supposed to be here. No human life, something intelligent enough to create the balls and draw those lines around it shouldn't be on this planet. So the whole thing is fishy, and they, discount it by not talking about it and putting it off. This is something that we can't do. It fits into everything. Now, what we do know for sure, and this may be hard for some people to accept, is the evolutionary path that they do give us, no matter who or what put the bacteria here or put the ingredients here to create insects and create animals and create dinosaurs. No matter what put it here, that evolutionary timeline is basically correct, meaning that primates, we do share primate DNA. Now, we did not evolve, and they'll tell you this too. We didn't evolve from primates. We share a common ancestor. What the fuck does that mean? Now, and again, the problem with us evolving or having this primate DNA is, or chimp DNA, they say, that our last living ancestor is the chimp. So the problem with us sharing this DNA again is the fact that we can't find this common ancestor. Now, we have a fossil record, and you have to really think about it. A long time ago, remember, the Earth has its layer of crust, and eventually once all that cooled and everything, we get our first land mass. What happened is you had life eventually spring up, but remember, volcanoes erupted and you had a bunch of lava and eventually dirt and everything cover those fossils or cover those bodies. And then it happened again and again and again and again, and you have layers upon layers and layers of Earth that's basically covering the bodies, the fossils, the remains of former life that was here on this planet. So the deeper we drill, we can tell, what period in time that these specific animals live. And we know we do this all the time with dinosaurs. The thing is, if dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, even if they lived during the time where they coexisted with us, we have been digging up dinosaur remains for, hundreds of years, long time. Now, we've been finding fossilized remains of animals going millions and millions of years back. If we evolved from this missing link, we should have by now found its body. We have not. We have not found the body of the missing link. Not just that, when you look at the chart, you see these evolutionary lines. Look at the primates. You see everything that they came from. We not only, as I said, this line should not be here, should be gone, but we not only have a missing link, we don't have the evolutionary line that missing link would have come from. So we know something is up here. Okay, so let's cut straight to the point. Bottom line, human life was not created here on Earth. It had to be created somewhere else. Now, the DNA that we share with these animals was created here. Earth at some point was terraformed. I believe it was terraformed a couple times, and it was terraformed to create the atmosphere that was needed to create first the animal life and then our life to sustain us. And we were put here for whatever reason. We'll get into, much later. We got a lot to deal with. So they terraformed this planet. And that's what all of the research shows. We have so many different climate changes that occurred. You had dinosaurs being here, giant dinosaurs, these giant lizards for what? Created for what? Now, they want you to believe that, evolution just happened and for no particular reason at all this stuff just evolved out of nowhere. What we do know is these animals did evolve here. Something was placed here. They were intentionally developed here, but we wasn't. we was created somewhere not on this planet. And all of the facts point to that. We share this DNA, but the missing link is the key to understanding this thing. And we don't find that missing link. It's just nowhere to be found. Common sense should tell you something is up. That we find animal fossils millions of years old, but we don't find the remains of this missing link that really should be in abundance when you think about the sheer number of primates that exist. I mean, so many places. So from my research, and you'll begin to agree as we go along, I don't think we was created here at all. Now, I talked about how they did a DNA sequencing of the green anole, and they found out that we share a lot of DNA with not just it, but a lot of other animals as well. We share DNA with cats, mice, cows, opossums, platypuses, and, reptiles. So, a lot of people don't understand why we used to dissect frogs. Why all the time in high school you always see it. You got to dissect frogs in high school. It's because we share similar muscular systems and skeletal systems and nervous systems. When you look at them, it almost look identical to human systems. So, dissecting the frogs was the way to figure that out. Now, they always talk about how life climbed out of this primordial soup and began to evolve and walk around and stuff like that. So, they tell us that these single cell bacteria, the single cell organisms evolved, and out of the waters, we start getting life and, eventually plants and animals and cattle and stuff like that. And then eventually us humans. Now, the thing is, when you pay attention to the Bible, it's telling you basically the same thing, which is why, it's funny how people get confused when you look at the Bible and they don't really pay attention to evolution because they have been told by religion that evolution is the devil. So if they would have paid attention and then looked at evolution, then went back to the Bible, they would have been like, well, wait a minute. The Bible is basically telling us the same thing. You look at Genesis 1:20, it's basically talking about how the waters brought forth an abundance of life, and life came out of the waters. And you look at 1:24, you get the animals start to come about, and God created the cattle and stuff like that. Then you look at Genesis 1:26, you see that God created man, and then you start looking at what that pertains to, and it says that God formed man from the dust of the ground. And everything about the creation of man, shows fabrication. And remember, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So, that is a conscious thing to say right there. That we are specifically going to make man a certain way, and that certain way is going to be in our image. It implies creation, not evolution or, us evolving from this bacteria. So it's really implying that when you pay attention to what it's saying. And when you look at, remember I talked about the first creation when, God said, let us make man. But then you have another creation where Adam is created from the dust of the ground. And Eve is created from his rib. So you have two creations. One, God is basically making man in his image after his likeness. And then another creation where you have Adam being made from the dust of the ground. Now, the whole thing is one different from the other? And we went into this whole thing. And you got to look at that and say, well, wait a minute. One group of humans was made in the image of God. Then another was made from the dust of the ground, meaning fabrication. So, as I was saying, when you go back and look, there was a group of people, obviously before the people who came out of the whatever event that happened on this planet, whatever destroyed the earth. Now, we don't know if that first group of people was gods. If you created in the image of God, then you are a god. You're supposed to be God-like. And remember, the Egyptians talk about this civilization that created the pyramids, them being gods and them having this knowledge and power. The second creation is still being called man, but it's a fabrication of man made from the dust of the ground. So basically implying that I took some stuff from the ground, from the earth, to create these people. Do you understand what I'm going with this? Understand where I'm going with this. So when you go back and look at everything, it's obvious something existed before us that was powerful, that was a different type of being, and it's gone, whatever that was. And if you want to call the sun god or the power of the sun god, you would think that these people possess that kind of power. But then you have this fabrication of this same kind of life. It's supposed to be the same kind that's created and given rules and everything like that, and told to go till the ground and follow these rules and obey. It's the same as us. The story, as I said, the Bible is trying to tell you what happened, but you got to know how to look at real life and separate the two. But we really got to look into what the Bible is telling us, because it's the key. As I said, these people know. They know already. We're trying to figure it out. They know. And obviously, they left behind the pieces for us to figure it out. We just got to know how to put it together. Now, we know we share DNA with animals. That much is proven. But there's a large part of our DNA that they have no clue what it is. Remember, they tell us that 97% of our DNA is basically junk DNA. Like, we don't know what it's for. It's not coding enzymes and proteins, so it's junk DNA. And junk DNA is still DNA. It should be, used for something. Now, the whole reason why they tell us that is the junk DNA is the missing link. They know that junk DNA is alien DNA. This is something that I put together on my own back in 2005. And I came to that conclusion just thinking critically and looking at everything. And I said that, this junk DNA shit must be the DNA or be DNA that they can't find on this planet. You have to really start to think about the fact that we can go deep into the earth and pull out fossils, or they can go pull out a fucking 10 million year old mosquito, draw the DNA from it, and tell you exactly what kind of dinosaur that mosquito sucked on. You have ancient human remains. You mean to tell me you can't tell us who this common ancestor is that we have? It doesn't make sense. So I came to the conclusion that obviously that DNA must not be from this planet. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you have as well. Now, the thing is, mainstream scientists, started coming out talking about this, but not in mainstream forums, of course. So now I want to read something here. Scientists have found an alien code in our DNA. Ancient engineers. It says, according to mainstream scientists, alien code found in our DNA, extraterrestrial beings created our species. Researchers who worked for 13 years in the Human Genome Project indicate that they came across an amazing scientific discovery. They believe that the so-called 97% of non-coding sequences in human DNA is nothing less than the genetic code of extraterrestrial life forms. It makes sense to me. Originally referred to as junk DNA. Its function remained a mystery for researchers. Now researchers believe that our DNA is extraterrestrial in origin. After extensive analysis with the help of other researchers in diverse fields such as mathematics, chemistry, and programming, Maxim A. Makukov of the Fezenkov Astrophysical Institute have ventured out and asked if there is a possibility that what we call junk DNA is actually some sort of extraterrestrial code created by an alien program. And when you look at a lot of people's research who get into this, even if you want to go into people like David Icke, who talks about, this earth being like a illusory reality, we've been programmed and stuff like that. Remember, as I talked about in the whole Mystery School DVD about everything is math. So when you start looking at everything, we talking about codes. Remember, a computer program is just ones and zeros, binary codes based off. That's the platform. Everything we talking about is math. Math is just all over us. Then you can really start getting into these codes. No matter how you want to put it, when you break it down, it's going to lead to math. So codes. it's not real easy for people to wrap their head around that. Well, what do you mean coding? I mean, that sounds stupid. But when you understand that everything is math, do you understand when they say codes, they mean that we can really literally map out everything and put it on paper as a code that's going to give you something. And to see, when I saw that article, and there's a couple other articles, I'm not going to read them all, you can look for yourself. When I saw this article and I looked for more, because obviously you want other sources, I was like, well, damn. I mean, they basically came out and said it. And the reason why is because people already know and people already suspect it. And you can't keep hiding this stuff. Remember, the rule of the occult, one of the major things they want is the truth must be revealed for whatever reason. They want the truth to come out. As long as it's not by somebody who's on the inside, they don't give a damn to some degree. But this is something that people had already knew and they couldn't hide it no more. And the fact that it was mainstream scientists, and it was because you had a lot of independent scientists before them, as you'll find out, who was already talking about this stuff and coming out about it. They can't shut up the mainstream scientists. I mean, the independent researchers, because that's us. That's people like you and me. If you just went to school and got your PhD and learned about astrophysics, physics, and you learned about biology and astronomy or what have you, you just became this genius scientist, on your own, and work for yourself and start putting out stuff. I mean, they can't stop people from doing that. And there's so many people who do that. And the problem is, if you want to have a successful career after you spent so long in school, you got to follow the rules. You got to keep your mouth shut. You got to do what they tell you to do. If you want to work at university or teach, you got to follow the game plan. So we don't get so many big name scientists or major credible researchers to come out and give us information like this. But since we do have a few, and since regular people with a brain who didn't go to school and get a big PhD and all that stuff is putting this stuff together, eventually, of course, it was going to come out. But, it was good to read that and have that kind of validation. But it's common sense. We have this coded DNA that they're telling us 97% of it, they can't figure out what the hell it is, huh? But you also can't find me the missing link. So that DNA must be it. So we know in the book of Genesis, God is saying, let us create man in our image after our likeness. And he created man and told man to go be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, implying again that something was here on earth and it was destroyed and it had to be replenished. Life had to be replenished. Now, again, we can go back to Pangea. Pangea supported life. There was life on Pangea before it was destroyed, before it was wiped out. It is the largest known loss of life in human history. It's the largest recorded. I mean, this is real deal. I mean, we know this happened. It is the most you'll ever find of a civilization or a bunch of life being wiped out in the history of our planet that we can actually prove. That was Pangea. So if you look at that, when you look at the Bible saying, let us make man in our image and go be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. That was, remember, that first creation. So again, when we go back and look at everything, and it's talking about the cyanobacteria creating life that would eventually leave the waters and evolve on land and become, so many different life forms. I mean, it's two things that basically don't fit when you look into the whole thing. One is it's very hard for them to prove the existence of these dinosaurs or how they came into existence. Again, it's tough to go from such a microscopic life form to these huge dinosaurs. So that's one thing that is puzzling, and they can't tell you exactly that whole process of how it happened. It involves too much speculation as far as the atmosphere playing a large role in these huge dinosaurs. And of course, the second thing would be us. It doesn't fit when you look at the missing link that we cannot find. As I said, I honestly believe, and scientists are alluding to, that's alien DNA and that we were created somewhere. They terraformed this planet to create the life that they would use to then create us. And this is what we are seeing. And they are hiding that fact with this whole 97% DNA that it's junk DNA. We don't know what the hell it is. Doesn't make sense. So it's funny how they hide stuff, in plain sight. I mean, when I had this knowledge of this information, and I kept researching. I mean, for a minute, I was basically evolutionist. I believed in evolution, but I knew it was just some issues with it as far as us, the creation of human beings. But then when I saw this movie and the opening scene just blew me away. So this is why I always use Prometheus in a lot of my videos, because they give away so much that I can't believe they talk about, and they validate so much in that movie. You have these aliens. If you've seen the full scene, you had these aliens come in. It's an uncut scene where it's more aliens than just him, who come in, and something happens, and you see what happens. And the movie is basically about these people who find out that it's aliens that created us. So they go to one of the moons of Saturn on a ship called Prometheus. And coincidentally, one of the moons of Saturn is called Prometheus, after the Greek god. Now, when they get to this planet, which they basically trying to tell you is one of the moons of Saturn, because they fly right past Saturn in the movie. But when they get there, they go onto the planet and they find this place where they are basically, the aliens are basically terraforming this place to sustain this alien life. And then when the humans get there, they realize that it's the same kind of conditions or atmosphere as Earth, and they're able to breathe there. They don't need their suits or whatever. And then they find out these aliens was basically destroyed by what they was creating. And they take back one of the aliens and do a DNA test, and they do find out for sure that those aliens, or we came from those aliens, by DNA. So it was a perfect match. So it's funny because I was talking about in part 1 and part 2, how, scientists and everybody talked about how Earth was, before, one of the moons of Saturn. And we know about, Titan is supposed to be exactly like Earth, and Titan is one of the moons of Saturn. But it was supposed to be closer. Earth was supposed to be closer to Saturn, and you could see Saturn clearly from Earth. And there's a lot of scientists and researchers and astrologers who talked about this. So, I mean, it's everything here. When you start putting it all together, it just fits. Stuff start fitting together, and the pieces start fitting together when you look at just that one movie, because they had a lot of stuff in movies, and then all of the information that we gather on this particular subject. When you start putting it together, it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, we know something is up with Saturn. There's no way around that. We know about the whole Saturnalian Brotherhood, how Hitler was in a Saturn, how we see Saturn everywhere, all in company logos. Saturn is Satan, and it's so much into that. So we know it got to be something going on with that planet. It's humongous. So it's possible that it can sustain and support life. We heard about these black extraterrestrials, the ringmakers of Saturn, that's supposed to come from there. And how, I was talking about before how they were possibly the original ancient Egyptians. We look at the hieroglyphs, and you see these giant Egyptian beings. And as I talked about, many people believe that they came to Earth and created us somehow, or came here. And because of the atmosphere here, the Egyptians that was born here, were born small because of the atmosphere. So many theories, so much. We're going to get into that a lot more later on as we go. Not in this video, but in other videos, because there's a lot more to that fits in a lot of places. But it was funny when I saw this movie. It was like, man, it was like, boom. There is that extra little, push that I needed to really follow this subject more when I seen that opening and seeing them put that DNA into the water. Now, understand that double helix is all of our DNA. It's not just human DNA. When you see that, animal DNA looks the same as far as the double helix strand and everything like that. It's just, the symbol of DNA, how it looks. So, that could be anything that was in the water, when a movie first starts up and you see the DNA form. We don't know exactly what that was. Could be human, could be animal. We don't know. But it's saying that aliens came and basically did something to put this DNA signature on the planet. And as I was saying in the beginning, something had to be introduced to this planet in order for this kind of life to spring up. after 3.5 billion years. Now, I don't just put my stock in a movie. It's a lot of other things that you have to consider. One of the things that really puts the dagger in this whole thing for me, as far as it pertains to humans, is the evolution part of it. I mean, you have to really think about it. I mean, they're telling us that, we evolved from these single-celled bacteria. And we know we can't get nowhere around that. We have chimp DNA. You just can't ignore the chimp DNA, the primate DNA. We have that DNA. So there's nowhere around that. So we can see that clear. But the thing is, you're talking about the evolution of this bacteria into these more complex organisms. So when you look at the world and the fact that this stuff was happening all over the world, this bacteria was growing. The problem is the conditions in some parts of the world were different from other parts of the world, meaning that you had some bacteria grow millions of years later than other bacteria in other places. So that being the case, what we should see is the evolution in some places being complete, and in other places, being in the middle stages or the beginning stages. So we should see stages of evolution. We don't see that. It seems like everything just evolved together, which that wouldn't make sense. Now you would have to think that since there are primates in other places than Africa, why is it that life began first in Africa and not in other places as well? We got to think about that. So if evolution is the way they say it is, and we evolve from these primates, or we share this common ancestor with primates, and we evolve from whatever that ancestor is, then we should see life, human life, in other places of the world. We shouldn't be able to definitively say that civilization began in Africa. The only way you can say that is if something put civilization in Africa, if life was purposely started there. Now we know the first beings were melanated beings. So the best place for you to put a melanated being would be in Africa, where the sun is in abundance. So that's one thing right there. But if evolution is going on all over the planet, as they say, we should see life in many other places besides just Africa. And the fact that we don't see that tells me something is up. We should see the progression, the evolution of life all over. We don't see that. You should see stages. We should be able to find the result of the chimp and the missing link mating, and that process of whatever it, what became from it. And they tell us that Australopithecus would be that next life that was created from the missing link in its chimp, these primates. So we get Australopithecus, and then you see the progression, after that, the rest of the, the Homo progression. And still, the missing link is gone conveniently. Not only is the missing link gone conveniently, but the whole line that it would come from is missing. So we don't have the missing link. So that's gone. But we don't also have where that missing link comes from. So to me, that right there, if you follow what I'm saying, it was kind of confusing. That right there tells me that, we definitely didn't come from here, because it just doesn't fit. We should have found by now. And we can go back, as I said, and dig up 30 million year old dinosaur bones, right? And, reconstruct an entire, Tyrannosaurus and know exactly how it looked and the color its skin was and all kinds of stuff like that. You mean to tell me we can't reconstruct how the missing link should have looked or would have looked? And we can't find an evolutionary path that it took and where it came from. They don't give us none of that. You got to realize that it's not here. It's not on the chart. We don't know what it looked like. We don't know what it evolved from or where it came from. It's just missing. And that's how they deal with it. They just don't put nothing there because they never had to explain anything they put there, and they know it's not going to add up. So now to put this into perspective and be a little bit more clear about it, we all know about Pokemon. If you don't know about Pokemon, I don't know where you've been the last, 20 years or so. Pokemon. Everybody knows about Charmander. So with the evolution of Charmander, you have Charmander, Charmeleon, you have Charizard, and you have Mega Charizard, which is, they added recently. So you can see the evolution of Charmander. You can see Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, and Mega Charizard. So boom. If you go to Pokemon Land, you will be able to find all of these evolved forms of Charizard, and you know where they came from. Now with us, it's like, well, wait a minute. We got Mega Charizard, we got Charmander, but Charmeleon and Charizard is gone. We can't find them nowhere. They don't exist. So it would be like, well, wait a minute. How does Charmander go to Mega Charizard? We can't find an evolutionary path for that to take place. So how did it happen? And then they're telling us that, well, it takes millions and billions of years for Charmander to evolve into a Mega Charizard. And it's like, huh? So when you look at the whole evolutionary scale they give us for us humans, and we've all seen this before. We've all seen it. And it really shouldn't look like that. It should look more like this, to tell you the truth. But these guys, these missing links, I mean, we can't find them. We can't dig up any kind of resemblance or anything that resembles this half ape looking human thing. And as I said, we've been digging up dinosaur bones for, hundreds of years. By now, we should have found the remains of a hybrid or half ape looking, the evolved form, I should say, of this, this ape looking thing to a human. If you understand what I'm trying to say, we should have seen it. We should have found it by now. So many people around the world digging up bones all the time, digging up so much stuff. We don't find nothing. We don't find nothing at all. We don't have anything to tie that whole thing into existence. It don't exist. And, when you look at the scale and the chart, I mean, you pay attention, they're telling us, one, that we didn't evolve from chimps or primates. We have a common ancestor. But when you look at the chart, I mean, what is that first animal? It looks like a chimp to me. So if we didn't evolve from it, what is it doing there? So, I mean, what that line should be that you're looking at, what a lot of people don't realize because they put stuff right in front of your face and they think you're stupid. How can they show this? How could this even be created when we don't know what the missing link is and we don't know where it came from? This whole evolution line implies that all of these things before the human is that missing link that basically at some point must have made it with chimpanzees to give us Homo or Australopithecus. But, right now, really, you have Homo Australopithecus and then the evolution of that to us. It's a missing link. This is like so wrong. It shouldn't even exist, in common sense. How can you create this when we don't even know what the missing link is? And if we didn't evolve from chimpanzees, then what is a chimpanzee doing at the beginning of the evolutionary scale? That doesn't make sense. And that they don't explain in the drawing that it's trying to say, well, it's a common ancestor that you share. It doesn't fit. They know you don't give a shit. They know people are too stupid to figure this stuff out. And you just gonna go along with the old smart scientist who got a PhD or what have you. It doesn't make sense when you study it. It's like, what is the purpose of this? This is to deceive. It was created to deceive and make you think we evolved from monkeys. A lot of people don't understand that science tells us we didn't evolve from monkeys, but they want to allude to that. Because as I said, you can't deny it. When you look at apes and you look at us, you see that similarity. So a lot of people just sit and be comfortable with that. But there are some things that don't fit. Like the main thing being, we don't see no damn monkeys evolving. We don't see it. So they say, well, it takes billions and millions of years for them to evolve. Well, it should be some monkey somewhere that had begun to evolve at some point. They've been around on Earth for millions of years. How come we haven't seen one begin to evolve yet? What's going on? And some people think, well, wait a minute, they don't live for millions of years, so how can they evolve? It's crazy. But this chart is wrong. It should look more like this. It should look like exactly what the research is telling us. And that is, one, if you don't know what 97% of our DNA is, and you can't match that 97% of DNA with anything on the planet, because understand, when they tell you this, they think y'all so stupid. When they tell you that 97% of the DNA is junk DNA, we don't know what it is. And the whole thing is, well, wait a minute, it's DNA, right? It's supposed to be human, right? So, then they say, well, it's non-protein coding and non-enzyme coding. That's the excuse they give you. But it's DNA. You should be able to break it down and tell me what it is. So since they think we're stupid, they just say it's junk. Because they're not going to tell you that it's not from this planet. It's extraterrestrial. And, they're trying to hide that from us. Now, when I was researching this, I had to be 100% clear about what they said about us evolving and us not evolving from primates, but sharing a common ancestor. Because, when you're looking at the whole thing, it's like, what the fuck does that mean? It doesn't make sense to me. Shares a common ancestor, then where? Because when you look at the evolutionary line, what does ancestor mean anyway? What does ancestor mean? Somebody who came before you. Okay, so when we go back and look, okay, where did it come from then? So if we share a common ancestor, what is that ancestor? Where is it? It's nowhere in the evolutionary path. So we don't know what that is. And to explain that, they just don't talk about it. So now I wanted to be 100% clear on what they were saying. Take a look. So now, as he said, we share a common ancestor. He doesn't elaborate on what that common ancestor is. He doesn't tell us what it is, believe it or not. Nobody does. They don't tell us. Now, notice when you look at Australopithecus, it basically has, as I said, it has that line that's coming from chimpanzee that should not be there. That line should be gone because it is implying that Australopithecus evolved from chimpanzees. And of course, Australopithecus did not evolve from chimpanzees. And the truth of the matter is they have no clue where Homo Australopithecus came from. Now, what they do know is we have Australopithecus afarensis and Australopithecus africanus. And they know that they do share some common features, but they have no clue where the hell it comes from. And when you go to the Smithsonian website, it tells you exactly that. So now pay attention to what it's saying because it's kind of crazy. It says, below are some of the still unanswered, pay attention, still unanswered questions about Australopithecus afarensis that may be answered with future discoveries. So Australopithecus africanus is currently the oldest known early human from South Africa. Where did it come from? See, they don't know where it came from. Was it a descendant of Australoafarensis from Eastern Africa? Is Australopithecus africanus part of the lineage that led to our own species, Homo sapiens? Now, to me, right there, that's huge because they're asking the question, is it? Meaning they do not know. How don't they know? And they give us this evolutionary chart because they have no clue where it came from. So how can you tell us that we evolved from this when you are saying clearly on the Smithsonian's website, it's unanswered. We don't know where it came from. We don't know if it evolved from Australopithecus afarensis. We know it's part of the Australopithecus family, but we don't know where it came from. We don't know where any of them came from. So what is this whole evolutionary scale y'all giving us as to the answer of how humans evolve? So they're telling you on the website it's bullshit. So now that line should be gone. That evolutionary line should be wiped out. It should be a question mark there because you don't know where Australopithecus came from and you don't know whatever the missing link is, where that came from, where it evolved from. So now we got to look at the rest of this stuff up here, and because it's crazy. So how can they be sitting there telling us they have now? Understand this. You got to understand psychopathic racism. And this is what I mean by that. The Smithsonian is telling you clear as day. We don't know where this stuff comes from. And the biggest thing they said there is, did Australopithecus basically evolve into Homo sapiens, which we are supposed to be. Human beings supposed to come from Homo sapiens. So it's telling you we don't know. So how the hell can you have Neanderthal bones, right? Because they're saying Neanderthals was here before the evolved form of Homo sapiens, well, before Africans. So you had Neanderthals. Notice how they always show Neanderthals with these white faces. Understand that what's going on. So if you have Neanderthal bones and they claim that they have found more Neanderthal bones than any other bones on the face of the earth, any other bones of the so-called human family. So more Neanderthal bones than Homo sapien bones or Homo erectus, so on and so forth. They found more bones according to them. That's crazy. So if you have Neanderthal bones, right? Understand we have the Lucy bones. Lucy is Australopithecus. A lot of people don't understand that. That's what her species is. She is Homo Australopithecus, Lucy, which is supposed to be the oldest so-called human bones ever found. So they have those bones, right? So how the hell can they tell us definitively 100% that Neanderthal evolved eventually from Australopithecus if they are unsure that Homo sapiens evolved from Australopithecus? You understand what I'm trying to say? How can they know that? Now, as I said, we have unearthed many dinosaur bones where they have pulled out dinosaur bones from the ground and reconstructed an entire, huge dinosaur from these bones. You have the Lucy bones, right? You have the Homo sapien bones. You're supposed to have Homo erectus bones or what have you, and they can't tell us where they came from. So if the buck stops at Australopithecus and you have that DNA, how can't you tell us what, where it came from? Where it evolved from? And again, the explanation for that is, we don't know. It's just wiped out. It's gone. Not only do we not find that missing link, we don't find the lineage or what brought it into existence either. So again, when I tell you that 97% of junk DNA is extraterrestrial and they know it and they're trying to hide it, that is the case. But I'm going to go one further and tell you 100%, as I said in my video on YouTube about the origins of all the species, where we all came from, all the races of people. I got that that video on YouTube. But I said in that video, this Homo sapien crap, this Neanderthal crap is bogus. I don't believe it for 1 second. You are free to believe whatever you want. And I tell you, do your own research. There is no fucking such thing as a Neanderthal. And I'm telling you now, you can believe that if you want. They came up with that whole thing so they can try to justify the white race basically running the whole show by saying that, we was here first. So now, to put it in perspective, just so you can understand what I mean. If your great grandparents invented, let's just say they invented ice cream. The great grandparents, they came up with the whole recipe and everything like that. They got super rich off of it. Eventually you was born and you came into the family business and everything like that. So you had a rival company form and grow up and start making a lot of money. And then they started to basically take all the credit for ice cream. Who should that credit be given to? The ancestors of the original people who created ice cream, which would be you guys? Or to these new people who came up out of nowhere trying to claim ice cream when we can say that, well, wait a minute, their ancestors was here first. They created ice cream. You shouldn't get all the credit. This is the whole purpose of Neanderthal. So they can say, well, wait a minute, the progenitor or the so-called great grandparents of the white race was here before African people. So they was here on this planet before black folks. And this is what you have to understand that you are saying when you believe in Neanderthals. You are saying that the origin of the white race was here before black people, if you want to believe in Neanderthals. So they say they found Neanderthal bones in these caves and it was buried with tools or what have you. And, they was buried traditionally like humans bury each other today. So they are trying to make the claim that these Neanderthals was here first and they evolved from Homo heidelbergensis, but according to them, when you look at the scale, so did Africans. So Africans also evolved from Homo heidelbergensis. So Homo heidelbergensis had 2 evolutions. That's weird. How does that happen? So what they're saying is, first you had the Neanderthals, and it was in Africa first. They left Africa conveniently to go up to the cold north and to the caves and everything like that, because, Africa wasn't lush and beautiful enough for them with all its abundance of, life and, fruit, and soil is super rich. They all left and went up north to the cold, to Europe. That's what they want you to believe. And, then eventually later, the Africans came into being. And since they know, one, it's, Neanderthals is supposedly is extinct. But since they know that we was here, they had to tie us into each other. Because when you look at a white person, come on, it's no way it's that much difference between us. We look exactly the same except for the color of our skin and hair. So their excuse is, well, the Africans trying to make us look bad. Well, the Africans at some point went and made it with Neanderthals and created the white race. Now, you have to be born in a third world country to believe such stupid shit. It's stupid. As I said before in the video, there's no way you can take a Kunta Kinte, Michael Blackson looking African and mate him with a Neanderthal and get a clean cut white boy like Tom Cruise. It's just not going to happen. So we know when we mate with anything, you're going to see that blackness. You're not going to see a milky white boy like Tom Cruise. Come on. It's just retarded. People believe this stuff. So these people have went and created, bones. I mean, you dig up bones and you can make anything look like anything. We know the links that they go to try to, cover up stuff and try to fake they funk. So when you go into these, Smithsonian Museum and you look at these, Neanderthal bones and all these so-called, remakings of the Neanderthal, what it's supposed to look like, all these dummies and statues or what have you. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And you have to understand what they are doing. They're trying to make it as if they was here first. And we copied off of them, and, they have a right to this planet before we do, because they was here first. So we're going to crack that whole thing open real quick. Now, notice when you look at this whole thing, you see that they have as their representative for African people, the San people of South Africa. Why? Because the San people have light skin. They have a little bit lighter skin than us super dark Africans. So this whole thing is so much psychopathic racism. And the fact that they put the San person there is just shows you how crazy these people really are. So notice when you read down here, they're saying that, well, it's more closer to how they looked or whatever like that. But the real deal is it's light skin. They put the light skin there so they can try to explain how, a lighter African would have sex with a Neanderthal and produce a white person, which is still lighter than both of them. It don't make sense. So, that's retarded. They put there when first they say, all life began in Ethiopia, around that area somewhere where we know everybody is super dark. So how you going to put the San man from South Africa as their representative of the African race? That don't make sense. But it backfired. It backfired on them because somebody noticed clearly that, well, wait a minute. When you look at the San people of South Africa, they look like Asians, as I talked about in the video on YouTube. They look just like Asian people. There's no way around that. And when you go back and look at the scale, you see they already gave us Asian Homo erectus to try to, please the Asian people. And they had the Asians actually thinking that's where they evolved from. But they couldn't excuse the fact that, well, wait a minute. These Africans look like Asians. There's no way around that. Let's do some research. So to shut people up, 2010, they came up with another evolutionary form of Homo heidelbergensis and said, well, wait a minute. He didn't evolve once or twice. He evolved 3 times. And we get the Denisovans. And the Denisovans is another evolutionary form of the Homo heidelbergensis. So what happened was the Chinese eventually did their own study and they found out. So now, as I said, psychopathic racism, because the Chinese came out and said, you know what? We know where we come from. We come from Africa. We are a descendant of African people, and you can see that clearly in the Sand people. That's exactly where they come from. When you look at the Mani, as I showed for the Thai people, they look like black people. It's an obvious thing that you can observe with your eyes. You don't need to do no kind of scientific study. You can see it. There's no way around it. You can look and see. So they did the research and proved it. So, this is what creates racism. You got people walking around believing that, well, the white race was here first, or the white race created everybody else and everything like that. And then you have black people who hate white people so much, they don't know that they add on to the stereotype that creates racism by saying stuff like, well, we ain't have sex with Neanderthals. I think Neanderthals just evolved into white people. Well, if you accept that, then you're saying that they were here before us. So you got to understand when you throwing pop shots at white people, what you're saying. No, there's no such thing. They didn't exist. And to prove that, as I said before in the video, everybody came from us. The Africans are the mother and father of the entire races of people that's on this planet. And here's the proof of that. So now, if you took this video into the Smithsonian and to the Neanderthal section in the Smithsonian Museum, it blows all that shit away. It's laughable because it's a joke. Because that video you just seen proves that it's no such thing as any of this bullshit that they're talking about with these Neanderthals. Because he's telling you clearly that everybody came from black people. It's just no way around that shit. We evolved. The dagger is when he took the genetic marker that created this pigment mutation and put it back into the zebrafish. It regenerated its blackness, its spots from human DNA. So telling you that it's the same kind of mutation that happened. Notice he's telling you it happened because of mutation. This is what the whole albino thing is about. This is what took place. It was a mutation. They are a mutation of us. Just like men are a mutation of women. The black woman is God. She had two mutations, as I talked about. The first one was man. The second one was the white race. And there's so much more that we're going to get into as it pertains to what they can do, because they are the key. As I'm going to put a whole video out eventually into black women, because there's a lot of stuff that y'all need to understand and the reason why they must be oppressed, because they are the key to everything. It's something you got to think about. If they was here first, there got to be something in them that can tell us what the hell is going on. So why ain't we looking? Because they don't want to look. They know already. You got to know. I know. And I'm going to let you know later on, because I understand. I get it. But it's no reason why the Egyptians would worship these women and give them the power that they gave them if something wasn't, divine or magical about them. They didn't have some kind of power. So at some point, whoever created them or put them here, it was a major reason behind it. I don't want to get into too much because there's a lot I got to get into before we get to this part for women, because there's so much more to it, and we'll get into that eventually. But that video proves, and gotta love those Asians for busting ass twice and telling the truth. So that video proves 100%. One, we can genetically prove who was here first, which they already know that. And that the whole Neanderthal, this whole little chart up here that you see of this Homo erectus and all this monkey bullshit is bogus. The buck stops at chimps. It's just that simple. We have chimp DNA in us. The rest of the shit, no. All this stuff is bullshit. Homo erectus and all this evolution crap is there to hide the simple fact that whatever they did to their chimp, and it created us. It's how we got here. The evolution scale that they're talking about as far as Australopithecus on up is super suspect. You don't have to, take my word for it. Just do the research. Look at it for yourself and just go by what we talked about so far in this video. And you can see that, something is not right. At least acknowledge that, when you get to the chimpanzee and the primate scale and shit drops off and we don't know what the hell goes there. As the Smithsonian tells you, we don't know where the hell Australopithecus came from. So How are you telling me that we have Neanderthals that supposedly evolved eventually from Australopithecus, but you don't know where the hell it came from? It don't fit. It don't fit. You can't. You must have his DNA to know that Neanderthal evolved from it. So if you have his DNA, then you can tell me where it came from. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we got to deal with this stuff, and it's hard to get people to accept it. And I like when I had a nice long conversation with a professor friend of mine who is a biologist, and we got into this whole thing, and he's so fascinated by the information because he studies molecular biology. And when you look at stuff on a molecular level, I mean, it's real easy for you to tell what's what. And he knows that if they had those bones, that it's no way they wouldn't be able to tell us where the shit came from. Because, I mean, we have a fossil record. Match it to something. Okay, well, we don't know exactly what it is, but I can tell you it consists of these certain things. They're not telling us that. Oh, well, if we evolve from it, then obviously whatever it was is in us. It's in our DNA. So isolate the gene that you don't know what the hell it is and see if you can find it in humans, and that will tell you exactly what the hell it is. You get more DNA for the missing link in us since you don't know what it is. But the fact that, of course, they know what it is and they know it's not from here, they give you a bunch of bullshit to mess your head up and just, think you're stupid. Because there's no way they can't know. They have to know when we have the DNA in us, obviously. If they could take your DNA and tell you who the hell the father is, come on. You are not the father. You are the father. They know. So this is just proof positive, whether you accept it or not, that one, extraterrestrials did, in fact, and this is exactly what I'm saying, 100%. You can call me crazy, but I'm saying it. 100% created us. They terraformed this planet, I believe, to create the life that they were going to eventually use to create us. There's a lot more to that, because the question is why. I mean, were they trying to recreate a body or a body for us for some reason? We know we are infinite energy. I mean, it gets really deep. I'm not going to get into that now, but we will, because there's a lot more to it. Now, I know it's hard for a lot of people to see, that the white race basically evolved from albinos, because people always say, well, white people look totally different from albinos. They couldn't be albinos. And you have to understand how this took place. Because one, what you would basically have is, once you have an albino and that albino mates with a black person and that baby comes out light, and then if that light baby, as I talked about this before in the video, if it mates with another albino or light person, then you will get this skin color, which is basically white people. There's many variations that can happen for you to see white people as we see them today. And if you get that creation and that white person only mates with other white people, that's only what it's going to produce, because it doesn't have that dominant black gene. So it will only produce another white person. And this is what we're seeing now. The whole thing is, we can find proof of this. I mean, this is Maria and Lucy. I mean, take a look. They're twins. One is black, one is white. Now, the mom is black, the dad is white. They got a white dad, but they twins. Now, this happens because obviously somewhere in the mother bloodline, or the dad's, of course, because he is white, we have albinism. And you have the mutation that occurs. So you got one black twin, one white twin. And you have another case where you have a mom that is albino and the dad is normal. So the baby came out basically normal, except it has a streak of white hair that's basically affected with the albino gene. So the baby looks normal. You would think that the baby would come out light or dark or a mixture, but the baby looks like there's nothing wrong with it except for that streak of hair there, as you can see. Now, we see this a lot with twins, and it's just something that's not really talked about. I seen a couple talk show years ago that talked about it, and they explained it and broke it down, where you see a mixed race marriage, and one baby comes out white, one baby comes out black. It happens all the time, but it's just proof positive that you can take the albino and mix it and get a regular white person. And we see it a lot. Believe it or not, these two guys are actually twins. And as I said, you find this a lot. I remember Corinne Parsons, Hillary Banks. Her mom is black, her dad is white. She had kids with a white man. Her daughter came out with blonde hair, blue eyes. But you can see that she still possessed a little bit of, African traits. You can still see she looks like she's mixed with something, but she came out like blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, it's just, you have to use your imagination to understand that this, happened at some point. And if you take these people who had this mixture, and let's say it was some kind of war that happened, or, they just separated into groups of just white people and made it within, their race, then they will only produce white people, and their numbers will grow and grow and grow. And this is basically how the white race turned out. They had to, at some point, mate back with black people, where they created this white race. And remember, if they only mate with other white people, they will look like that. So eventually, because remember, white people still got some melanin. Eventually, something like this had to happen. And you had probably clans of white people pop up all over the place and mate with each other. And they just basically grew in population. I mean, that's all that happened. Yeah, they look different from albinos, but it's clear as day that's where they come from. I mean, I don't understand how people can look at vitiligo, look at albinism, see the fact that Africans have blonde hair and blue eyes, and not say they came from us. Oh no, they came from Neanderthals. That shit is stupid. So if you think it's stupid for them to have came from albinos, but you think it's perfectly logical that a dark-skinned black-ass African made it with an ape monkey-looking thing and created a beautiful, woman like fucking Julia Roberts or some shit, you crazy. It's just not going to happen. There's no way a black man going to mate with that monkey thing and create a beautiful white woman or a Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise looking ass white person. It's just not going to happen. So it's ways to break this down and explain it. I'm trying to remember the damn book that I read where this guy explained it. If I find it, then I'll let you guys know. But it's proven, and you can see it without having to do no kind of scientific study. It's right in front of your face, proof positive where they come from. So the whole Neanderthal bullshit is bogus. But when you get to the part as it pertains to where humans actually came from, when you try to trace it back, it's no way that we evolved from the chimp. They can't tell us what the chimp made it with. So, I mean, all the proof is leading to some kind of modification of the chimpanzee and life on this planet, animal life, into what we are today. Now, I know it may be hard for a lot of you to fathom that. Aliens creating us somehow, some way, for what purpose, why, or what have you. Now, one of the things you got to think about, you got to understand this is, remember, the Earth is only 4.5 billion years old, and the rest of the universe existed, for over 10 billion years before Earth was formed. So you would have to think the circumstances that created us, or let's just say our solar system, had to have happened or occurred somewhere else. Many a times. Who knows? So you would have to think that, these beings, wherever they at, they had a head start, billions of years of a head start before us. They probably evolved or came about under conditions that's totally separate from us. They may look different from us, or they may look exactly like us. Remember, the same components that created us is out there in space. It's everywhere. So it's highly likely that not just one planet has life that looks like us, but multiple planets have life. So if at some point something happened and they needed to evolve further, then maybe something happened in this part of the universe. Maybe something is going on here that we just don't understand. And I've come to so many different conclusions as to what's going on here. And it's a lot more information we got to get into before I get to those conclusions. But we have to really pay attention to the universe, because it is so much more to it that they are not telling us. Not the simple fact that it could possibly be life out there. That's just one thing. It gets way more deeper than that, because then you have to think about dimensions. And that's something we're going to get into. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pick up, because this video is kind of long. I can't fit everything here. But a lot of what comes after this really goes into mental nature. So the mental nature part 3 is going to kind of sort of pick up a little bit, pick up from where this DVD leave off, and also get into some other stuff pertaining to the preparing for the mental nature, because there's a lot of information there and a lot of questions that present itself when you go on this line of research that I'm talking about in this video. So we're going to get into that in part 3, which is probably going to come out about a week after I put this out, or, maybe longer, but probably about a week. So, you'll see, we'll get into those questions in part 3 of that. But you have to really think about that. Of course, it is entirely possible that something put us here for a reason. Maybe something happened, we can only speculate, but we have to follow the proof. We got to follow the facts. We got to follow what we are seeing, and put the pieces together. And it's something I've been doing for years, because, I've been obsessed with this stuff for a long time. And whenever I got spare time, I'm looking at, what's going on, and, this is a video that really connects a lot of dots. And, again, it's a lot more to it, but part 6, there's a major piece to all of this, because then I could bring everything together in part 6 and you'll see how it fits. But I have to be in Kemet to do it, because what I'm going to say is so out of this world. I want to be right next to the proof when I do it. So, I'll finish part 6 sometime next year, the beginning of next year, or possibly before summer. As soon as I get time to get over there to Kemet, I'll go there and do part 6 and put it out. But it's so much that I had to get out in between that time to help part 6 fit in the other series. And you'll see that. Now, and of course, I can't leave it off right there. I forgot one major thing. Now, I could talk about how UFOs possibly created these bodies and animals and everything like that, but that doesn't explain our energy, our consciousness, the soul. Who created that? What is that about? Because we know, we look to that as being the essence of us, our energy, our soul. That's what it's all about. And as I said before, this solar system exists in a low vibratory section of the universe that creates and supports matter. And everything that is here for a reason. Now, the low vibratory state is that way for a reason. So it deals with our energy frequency. Something doesn't want us to be at full frequency, so to speak. And I don't want to give away what I mean by that. We're going to get into all that, because that's huge. So when you understand that this reality can exist, this time and everything, as I talked about, they created time because this is a low vibratory a frequency here. Remember when I was talking about atoms and everything, how this is all atoms. You really should be able to put your hand through this. But because of this low vibratory, frequency that we are living in right now, it created matter. So now we have matter. So now any atoms or any energy that comes here that is not conscious, that cannot control itself, is going to be reduced to solid matter. So this section, sustains. It creates and sustains and supports matter. That is huge. That is huge. So it goes back to the DNA. Remember that whole 97% of DNA that they don't know what it is, they call junk DNA. Well, guess what? They kind of figured out something inside that junk DNA, because of course that wasn't going to last long, because eventually you would have some scientists who do their own research, who are not, bought off, pieces of shit. Well, wait a minute, dude. I can tell you exactly what this DNA is. I can tell you that it's not from here. And I can tell you that, it has some major components that concerns me. So now what they found out is, our DNA has this, these mobile genetic elements called transposons or retrotransposons. Now they call it jumping DNA. Now it can rewrite, activate, or deactivate certain genetic codes. Now another part of this junk DNA is comprised of a variable of randomly repeating DNA sequences that they call satellite DNA. Now jumping DNA and satellite DNA interfaces with the morphic field, and the morphic field is basically a group of cells that basically responds to biochemical signals that basically leads to the creation of organs and tissue. So when I was talking about way back then, when these single cell organisms made up their mind to reallocate cells to different parts of the body to evolve, this is what I mean it involves. It involves you taking your DNA and being able to change it and to do different things with it. There's no way they could have been able to do that. So this is what they found in our 97% of DNA. Now, the whole thing is when these three things interface, it affects consciousness. Now, greater interfacing, or when these things connect on a deeper level, it basically alters or expands the information carrying abilities of our DNA. So when you have this interfacing of this DNA, this so-called junk DNA, if it interfaces in a correct way, then it can expand and basically open up the information parts of the DNA to allow things to be unlocked. So now remember, they found that at death that you get 100% control of the brain. The brain basically, all the parts of the brain reacts at death, and the DNA unlocks. The 97% that is basically dead, they call it, responds. So all of this stuff responds. It's supposed to be unusable or unused at death. So that's something that's weird that scientists have found out. So remember, if you remember the movie Lucy, in the movie Lucy, when she got 100% control of her brain, what happened? She basically, disappeared. She turned into this genius. Remember, her brain was unlocked 100%. She had all this information and she was sharing it. Remember, she was telling Morgan Freeman and them all this stuff, what was going on, and she computed it down into like a disk drive and gave them all this information. This is what this is alluding to, that you get 100% control of your brain and all this information of, who knows what is available to you, and there's no more need for the body. So remember, when she got 100% control of the brain, she was gone. There was no body, and she had all this knowledge, and she basically became a conscious God, so to speak. But this information is so important that I'm so glad it's out on DVD and not just on YouTube. So if they crash my channel or delete it or something like that, at least you guys have this information in your homes, which is good. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to put it out as well, because they can delete my channel, they can crash my website, and at least you guys will have this stuff, because it's stuff you're going to need, and I want you to get it in you and know this information. But yeah, this is part 5, and I'm telling you, part 6 is going to be really deep. That's a lot. We're going to bring everything together, but I got to be in Kemet to really show you guys this stuff. And I'm hoping that something is there that was once there. Even if it's not, we're going to get through the whole thing, and I can prove my point with proof. I wish there wasn't so much war going on. I would go sooner, but I'm trying to wait till a time where everything is kind of died down. And they really try to protect tourists over there, and I don't want to get into no crap. So I'm gonna go with a bunch of people anyway, but I gotta go there. So what I basically put together to put it really quickly is our DNA is coded, and it's coded with a sequence that can only be unlocked by us reaching full consciousness. And a lot of you probably gathered that already. Once reaching full consciousness, we have not only, a connection to a vast amount of information, but to matter as well, to our own being. So if we wanted to heal ourselves or do whatever to our bodies, we will be able to do so. And it wouldn't be a big issue. Now, I told you before, if any extraterrestrials come in spaceships, they are not truly powerful. The real powerful beings will be these energetic orbs that we see. And if they are indeed real, which I think they are, then that explains a lot. And it will be smart for them not to come here in any kind of form of matter that can be destroyed. They will come here as these orbs that we only can see as light and can't really touch or deal with. And that makes a lot more sense. But there has to be something more powerful. And either we have the potential to become that, or we are already that, or possibly this place is some kind of training ground or some kind of lab where they're developing something. I don't know. It's crazy, the possibilities when you get into the information. It really makes you look at so many different avenues of information that, could possibly explain what's going on here. And I'm going to get you closer to mine, because I narrowed it down to basically 2 explanations. And before I can give you those, we got a lot more information to go into for it to make sense. But, the implications of this junk DNA being this whole mobile, DNA or what have you, and actually being coded to do certain things tells you that this is by design. And as I said, I think something coded our DNA. So, or created a condition where our DNA was coded. We're going to get into this more in Mental Nature part 3. I'm gonna get into this because it's going to explain a lot. What do you do if you don't want us to reach a certain point of enlightenment or to evolve truly? I mean, you put hurdles and obstacles in our way to make sure we don't get, the right information. Now, it could be either the powers that be don't want us to evolve or reach this power because they're scared of what we're going to do to them, or it's something more deeper going on here. And we're going to get into all that. And like I said, remember I was telling y'all before that this joint could go up to like 10, but I'm going to have to end it. I'm going to end it at 6 because it's a lot more information that really goes into other different parts of things, because I want y'all to understand what certain people who we are told to stay away from was talking about and why they are considered evil. People like, H.P. Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey, and these people like Aleister Crowley, who I already talked about, Manly P. Hall, stuff like that. The information that they was really into, why it's considered evil and why these people are looked at as spooky and all kinds of stuff like that because of the questions they asked and the research that they did, and people who you probably never heard of did. And we're going to get into that because it makes too much sense and it all fits. And that's what I'm about. If it makes sense, I'm with it. I can't deal with all the spooky, crazy stuff. Even though it sounds like I'm talking about some spooky, crazy stuff, I can back it up. And you can go and look at what I'm talking about and see, what it pertains to. So, yeah, we're going to get into this stuff because this DVD, I had a lot more I wanted to add to it. I wanted to put in it, but I understand it's going to fit with some other stuff that I'm doing later. So we're going to get into all this stuff. And I want to thank you guys for, again, taking the time to purchase and to watch and support. You have made this series is huge. You have made this series a huge series, and a lot of people love it. And they watch it and they really draw a lot of information from it. So it's because of you guys sharing and talking about it and what have you. So I really appreciate the support. But we got a lot more to go. Part 6 will be out next year, the final part to this. And we got a lot more stuff to get into and a couple more new series that I got coming out that's going to really put out a lot of information. It's no way that you can sum up our existence and 6 DVDs and or 6 videos or what have you. It's not going to happen. You can't sum up what's going on in 100 DVDs. It's a lot that's going on. If I could just sit and talk without having no life or without being able to eat and just have all my books around me, then we could spend months, going through all this stuff. But I'm putting it out, and a lot of people are asking for it. So I'm gonna keep doing what I can do as much as I can do it. As long as I can do. Now, thanks again, guys, for taking the time to watch this video, to purchase the DVD or to download it. As I always say, I appreciate you guys' support, and you guys have made this series a really popular series. Now, there's a lot more stuff we got to get into. I'm going to basically pick up where this video is leaving off in the Mental Nature Part 3, and a lot of this information is going to really pertain to what the Mental Nature is talking about and what the ancient Egyptians talked about. So in preparing for that, we really got to continue this line of questioning and this research when we get into the Mental Nature in the beginning. So we're going to pick up some of this information in part 3 of preparing for the Mental Nature, as well as other information as well. So this is really going to be a lot of information that is going to bring things together, and part 6 is really going to tie, as I said, everything together. Once I go to Kemet, and I can show and prove. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I see you guys next video. Look out for Mental Nature Volume 3. It should be out in a week or in a few days, and I appreciate the support. Thanks for watching.